when it crosses over into like a personal level, like that's just below who I thought he ever would be. So like from that moment, I just like kind of just cut ties with him, and I was just like, all right, like if that's how you want to be.
On today's episode of the Grab Matters podcast, we welcome on a very special guest, professional wakeboarder from Australia, Cory Teunissen. Today we talk with Cory about his early days getting into wakeboarding, riding with his brother. We talk his first time coming to Florida, staying with Kobe Mikasic and that crew. We talk some injuries that Cory has had, including kind of a gnarly ankle one that was originally misdiagnosed and how that led to an unfortunate amount of time off the water recently. We talk Cory's thoughts on the 1440, knowing that he's done a 1260 wake to wake, what his thoughts on the 1440 on the double up are. We're talking his switch from O'Brien to Hyperlight. He was with O'Brien for 13, 14 years, and why he did switch over to Hyperlight and what that Hyperlight switch looked like. We're also talking about the rivalry between Nick Rappa and Cory Teunissen and some of the behind the scenes look at why that is such a strong rivalry between the two. If you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, supporting the brands that support the podcast is a great way to do that, as well as joining the Patreon. I just want to say thank you to all the Patreon subscribers. Your guys' support really helps keep this podcast going. It means a lot, so thank you to everyone who's on the Patreon. If you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, joining the Patreon is a great way to do that. Without further ado, hope you guys enjoy this episode of the Grab Matters podcast.
I approve waterboarding. They're talking about wakeboarding. The thing about wakeboarding, every trick is an invert.
Backside.
Air railing.
A new dimension.
All right, we're back. Another episode of the Grab Matters podcast. Today we welcome on a very special guest, Cory Teunissen.
What's up, dude?
Did I say that right?
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, thanks for coming on. So when I was growing up, my buddy said that your last name was Tinson.
Tinson.
Have you ever gotten that pronunciation before?
Not Tinson. I've had like Teunissen. I've had some pretty interesting ones like through high school and stuff. But
Teunissen, I like that.
Teunissen.
I usually start off with some quick questions. Wake pants, yes or no?
I think for park, for like 100%. I think you like. I feel like there's a little more of like a fashion focus on park versus behind the boat. I think behind the boat's like very like acrobatic kind of like performance driven, where I feel like you can kind of, there's a lot more fashion like influenced in like the park stuff.
The kit matters more at the park. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So yeah, I think like, I mean, behind the boat, it's probably like, it was actually funny. I was just at the Hyperlight shoot this week, and Rusty went out and was like mimicking Trevor. Had like wake pants, and he had like
Rusty
jacket.
had wake pants on.
Dude, it was epic. It was sick. He was like really feeling it too. He started to flow pretty hard. But yeah, for park and winch, like 100%.
Okay, yeah, that's a good take.
Yeah.
When was the last time you got in the park? You know?
Definitely not as much as I used to.
Hit us with a date, Cory. When's the last time? You remember? I mean, because pre-injury, I guess, right? Cause
yeah, I rode park this summer in Oz. They always do like Hyperlight do like a demo day, like the Gold Coast Wake Park, which is like 30 minutes from where I am. So I always go and help out and rip some laps around the park there, which is really fun. But I definitely don't ride park as much as I used to. That's for sure. I used to ride park every day. Yeah,
I mean, I was watching some edits from back in the day, and I think maybe I saw you at Phuket Wake Park with your brother. Maybe it was called something different back then, but in Thailand.
Yeah, that was like that was when I was super young. That was like a family holiday that me and my brother did with my mum, which was really fun. But I used to live. Do you remember a name called Gunn?
Oh, do I remember Aaron Gunn? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we're like best mates, and we kind of like grew up with each other. And we lived together for like 2 or 3 years in a row here in Orlando. So like our program every day was we'd ride boat in the morning, and then we'd go to the park for the rest of the day and ride cable.
I didn't know you rode boat that often.
He grew up on boat.
I know, but when he moved to Orlando, he was still riding boat too, I guess.
A little bit.
Okay.
He was obviously like park dominant then, and like his career started like taking off, and he was doing really well. He was like winning events and stuff. But yeah, he grew up on the boat, so it was like the perfect mix between like obviously myself and my brother were focusing on stuff behind the boat. So he'd come out, ride with us in the morning, and then we'd go to the park for 3-4 hours a day and just ride O-Dub every day.
I had no idea that you lived with Aaron Gunn for that long.
Yeah. No, he's a legend, dude.
He is a legend, dude.
Yeah, he's such a good dude.
I loved watching him, and I feel like he kind of like stopped wakeboarding like flip a switch almost, but he still like tunes into all the live streams that I watch, like on the cable side of things. He's like throwing comments in, which is
He's still got a
sick.
massive passion for it, which is really cool. I saw him in Melbourne this year at NUMB. He was like judging the event, which was pretty cool. So I got to catch up with him. He's got some kids now and stuff, and got the missus, and he does like he's like into photography, so he shoots a bunch of like weddings and stuff.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so he's doing really good.
Love that. I'd love to have Aaron Gunn on. He'd be a good one, I think.
Yeah. No, I got a lot of time for him. I spent a long time hanging out with him.
Yeah.
Every day. It was epic. Yeah, it was sick.
Next one, favorite grab.
I mean, always kind of just depends on like what you're doing, I guess, but you never can really go past just a straight method.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ever done a switch method?
Not well. not well enough to call it a switch method.
Okay, that's
Let's
fair.
say
That's
that.
fair. Yeah, tried for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I got one from Mike Dowdy. I was talking to him a little bit, and he's wondering about the time you and him played a game of Wake.
Oh my God, that sucked. It sucked. It was horrible. It was epic, and it was so fun. But, yeah, it sucked, dude. We like kind of like, I think Colin Harrington came out and filmed it. And it was for one of the magazine websites. It was either like Alliance or Wakeboarding Mag. I forget which one. I want to say it was Wakeboarding Magazine. But we started off just like having fun and like cruising around, kind of just going back and forth. And then I'm a competitive person by nature. Dowdy is a very competitive person also. And we just started going pretty hard. And we were on the water for like 2 hours, bro. And just wouldn't like, he'd land something and I was like, oh dude, I can't do this. Like, I'm not going to be able to make it. And I'm like, oh God. And then it just kept going and going and going. And we were on the water for like 2 hours. And then, yeah, it was epic. He ended up getting that one, which was pretty funny. But
dang, 2 hour game of Wake behind the boat. That's a.
It was epic. It was so.
Is there
like,
a video of this somewhere?
There is.
Okay, I gotta. I'll find that and put some clips into that.
I think it's on YouTube somewhere.
I'll dig that.
But yeah, it was so fun. And we got off the water, we're like, dude, that sucked. We're never doing that again. Like we both said it to each other. We're like, yeah, that's.
Well, the game of Wake's supposed to be kind of quick, fun, lighthearted, but
nah.
You get two athletes out there, competitors, Red Bull helmets. That's going after it.
Well, we started off having a lot of fun, just kind of messing around, doing like some fun stuff, and then yeah, it just kind of kicked off.
Was there a wager or anything? Was there something on the line here you guys were riding for? Or just
making a video.
Just pure prestige.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we got a call like a week before and was like, hey, you want to do a game of Wake? And we're like, sure.
There you go.
And that's how it kind of went down.
Love it. Let's shift to the early days. So obviously you're from Australia, grew up riding there. So kind of run us through where you're from and how you got into wakeboarding.
Yeah, so Brisbane boy originally, and my old man was into water skiing when he was younger. So it got passed down to myself and my brother very quickly. I water skied when I was 3. I think I hopped on a wakeboard a couple of years after that. But we always had a holiday house an hour west of Brisbane, which was at a lake called Somerset Dam, which I'd probably spent more time on that body of water than anywhere else you could say. Maybe like here in Orlando on Lake Jessamine. But and right when we kind of first moved out there, there was like a little village that got built for the people building the dam wall that like dammed it all and made the lake what it is now, which is epic. But it kind of turned into like a little ski village for the people that had like boats and like wanted to use the water and stuff. So there was like 6, I want to say like half a dozen households where we were all kind of learning at the same time.
Sick.
And you got names like Mitch Langfield, Jared Askew, Mitch Askew. I don't know if you've heard of those names. And yeah, that was like a really, really good crew of all of us kind of like learning and riding at the same time. And I was the youngest of the crew, so I kind of just followed what they did. They wakeboarded, they were older than me, they were cooler than me, so I kind of just like followed along. Yeah.
And older brother Brad, right, was into it, I'm imagining?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 3 years older than me. And yeah, I kind of just followed the leader, really, and just kind of stuck with it. Yeah.
You're growing up riding with, Mitch Langfield's legendary name. And your brother obviously is very talented too. When did you realize that you're going to be better than your brother?
I still remember the first time I beat him at an event, which was like just a like a local grassroots event, which was like a couple hours from where we lived, and I think I went out and like landed like a chromo or something, and like ended up like just beating him in an event, and it was the most awkward 2-hour drive home. I don't think one word was said out of the whole car. We just sat in silence for 2 hours. It was pretty funny, but I guess like, I don't know, I never really had like a defining moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to try and make something out of this. My whole life, I grew up around boats, around wakeboarding, got introduced to like the grassroots events very early on with that kind of Somerset crew that I grew up with. So got merged into that very quickly. That led to the state titles. That led to the nationals, and then everyone had already started going overseas and stuff. And then obviously Josh, Daniel, and Ike and Dean and stuff, they like had really already set the pathway of Australian wakeboarding converting overseas and making a big impact overseas. So for me, the pathway was very already open.
It was laid out for you.
It was laid out.
Okay.
So I just like kind of followed along.
Okay. What was, I mean, was your brother at this time, so you're, what, 12, 13? When's the first time you beat him? Remember that? Is that?
I think I was like 11 or 12 or something, yeah.
And so he's 14, 13 or whatever. And is he taking it pretty seriously too? It seems like if there's a 2-hour car ride home that was quiet, he probably was not stoked.
I mean, but like when it happened, it was definitely more like brotherly rival than anything else. But yeah, like we took it seriously, sure.
Okay. So when was the first time going to the States? Because you were pretty young from what I remember, right, to go to the U.S. for the first time?
Yeah, so the first time I came to the States, I was 9 years old. Okay. And we came over for the world titles, which was in Reno, Nevada.
Beautiful Reno, Nevada.
Yeah, great spot. We went back there a few years later, which was epic. And that was the first time I met Noah Flegel and Jason Soven. They were competing in the under 9 boys division with me. And it was a 3-person final, and it was all of us. And
3-person final, you get a podium no matter what.
Hell yeah. I think there was like 5 people in the division. We kind of dropped 2 and then 3-person final, and it was like kind of like set in stone the way like it was all supposed to be kind of written out. Like I had like 1 flip, Jason had 2, and Noah had flip 3. So like Noah was like the favorite to win the event, and ended up getting second. Noah ended up falling, which like was like, I don't know, I guess uncharacteristic for like Noah at that age. He was like really good. So, but yeah, first met Noah when I was 9, and we kind of just like became buddies really quickly, and kind of just like started growing and traveling with him. But the first time I really came over and spent time in America and in Orlando, I was 13, and I moved in with Kobe and Tara Mikasic.
Yeah.
And spent 6 weeks with them, and Dad flew me over. Left the airport, went over to their house, never met them before. I think we asked like just all the old boys were like, hey, like, where should Cory stay? And it was like, yeah, these people. We're like, all right, cool, whatever.
That easy.
So yeah, never met them before. Dad flew me over, shook their hands, said, hey, how you doing? Dad left that afternoon on a flight straight back to home. I was like, howdy, dude, see ya, you're on your own. And yeah, fully kicked me out of the house when I was 13.
So is that the whole summer you spent here? Or like what was the...
So that was 6 weeks.
Okay.
Spent 6 weeks with them. And then the following year was 14. I spent 3 months over here. Lived at Harley's place for that 3 months, which was epic, and also got introduced to life pretty early on. Harley was
I mean, how old's Harley at this time? He's got to be, and this is got to be peak Harley too.
Harley's 4 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was 18, sorry. Math was terrible. So yeah, he was like on top of the world, winning events, like just like had a couple years under his belt, was doing really well. So I was this 14-year-old kid living in a bunk bedroom with my brother and just got introduced to life very early on, which was epic. It was awesome. Just like a bunch of parties and
I can only imagine Harley's house at that time was just, insane. I'm sure.
It was so fun.
Probably riding all the time too and just like
it was
eating it
epic.
up. So before we kind of talk, I mean, at this point, you obviously probably have some sponsors, right? Because when did you get hooked up with O'Brien? Is that through Kobe in that like first time when you're 13, or was it before that or after that?
So O'Brien was my first ever sponsor.
Okay.
And the Australian distributor, his name was Mick Neville. He was like a water skier himself. Was like in the 3 event and stuff. He was like really, really good water skier. He ended up doing Liquid Force and O'Brien in Australia. So he put me on O'Brien when I want to say on product when I was probably like 9 or 10 years old, or like getting like wholesale or like whatever. But Mick was like a real driving force for me to like get connected with like the guys in the US when I was around like 13 age-ish. So there was like that connection, and then everyone else recommended like Kobe and Tara because they run like an unbelievable program and perfect for what we were looking for. So yeah, O'Brien was my first ever sponsor, and I was with him for 15 years.
Wow, it was that long, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I guess Hyperlight was somewhat recent. We can talk about that switch in a little bit. But so O'Brien, when you move over here in 13, 14, you're on O'Brien. Are they paying you at that point? Are you getting some money?
Yeah, I was.
Or shortly thereafter?
I was getting paid early on. I think I was getting paid I think I was 13 or 14 years old, and it was just like $500 a month or like $1,000 a month. But like to think back now, like to pay like such a little kid like that, like it's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. Before you can even drive or even think about driving.
I'd never even met them yet before.
Really?
Which was like crazy that like they were just paying this little kid from Australia. I remember like making like YouTube videos for them, and just like a classic like sponsor me video, and like sent it to them. They're like, yep, all right, cool. We'll give you $500 a month.
Maybe the only time a sponsor me tape has worked out that flawlessly.
Yeah. I was like, this is not normal.
Okay, so I mean, I guess we're kind of talking sponsors. Let's run through a little bit further of like as you start picking up more momentum as you're coming over here. So that first time 6 weeks, next year you come back for like a almost proper full season. How's that year go, and like how's the sponsorship kind of rack up after that?
Yeah, I was really lucky. I know that it's like not the case now, and it's very different now, but I had some sponsors pretty early on, and I worked with them for a very long time. I think I got put on Jet Pilot when I was like around the same age, like 13-ish. And I'm still with them today. And I distinctly remember we grew up owning Malibus. Like that was like the area, like Somerset, you didn't have a wakeboard boat, you had a Malibu. Like that was all that the wakeboard boats were. There was no other brands, nothing. So we grew up on Malibus, and I get it was like more like my brother was like kind of starting to like talk to sponsors and stuff, and then I was just that annoying little brother that was just like tagging along to everything. So when I was probably like 13 or 14, we were talking with Malibu, and we were talking with Supra, and they were kind of offering like Brad more stuff, but just like tagging me into the deal.
Looping you in, yeah. 2-for-1 type situation.
Yeah. And we ended up going with Supra. So I was probably on them from when I was really young as well, when I was 13, 14-ish. And I remember that 3 months that I lived with Harley, like Brad had like a Supra out the back of the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at this point, after you've been in the States for a few years, you're making not a proper living maybe, but like the path is obvious that, okay, people are paying me to do this.
Yeah.
There's, a future here, I guess. I want to talk about, I guess, Eddie as a young kid, because I heard you were in another podcast talking about how you were, I'm not going to say pushed to wakeboard, but your dad was very supporting, motivating. I don't know. How would you describe how your dad's like view towards your guys' wakeboarding careers was? Yeah,
he was very involved, which was epic. He loved the sport, but he definitely pushed this. I'm like a big believer in you get like those once in a generation talents that are like going to make it regardless of like whatever their
Without being
path
pushed or
is
anything.
or like whatever. But
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in like, if you want your kid to, if that's like the life that you dream of them, and if that's like what the kid wants to do, then like they got to be helped. They got to be pushed. It's not all going to happen just on them. So, dude, I remember getting left in the river, had to swim home almost every day.
For what? Just being a little shit, or
Just being a little shit. Yeah. And I was a pussy growing up too. I was bad. Like,
with trying tricks and stuff?
oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. I remember like, dude, like trying like my first like, say like tech, like MOBs, tech tricks or whatever, like just being I think I was probably like 11 or 12 years old. It's being a little pussy, and like I wouldn't try. Like I distinctly remember like it was a Tootsie Roll. I'd like do front rolls for 6 months.
Oof.
And just like wouldn't commit to it for 6 months. And like, yeah, tempers would fly pretty high when like you doing a front roll for 6 months. And then I'd try it and land at first go and be like, oh fuck, that was a waste of time.
Yeah, so 6 months down the drain, I'm at Dum Dum probably by now if I would have tried them.
So yeah, I got left in the lake and left in the river and had to swim home and make my own way home a bunch of times. But
so
like,
that's interesting to me, because I feel like with a lot of sports, the kid doesn't understand, like you're saying, like he could be really talented and good, but without the parent giving them that extra push, they're not going to get, to their potential. And maybe nowadays, I don't know if I heard you talking about this, but it's like maybe parents are a little bit more hesitant to like give them that push when really they should be doing that, because that's, their responsibility in a sense of like, if your kid's good at it and they want to do it, they're going to need some push from you too. Do you feel that same way?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it depends first and foremost on the kid, and they have to have the passion for it, otherwise they won't see it through.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like a quick conversation, be like, is this what you want to do? And do you want to be successful? And if the answer is yes, then like they most likely need help to get to that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's like also like very different now. Like my dad learned from Harley's dad, where like Harley's dad, Bill, was like gnarly on Harley. It was like very, very tough and very strict. And yeah, my old man kind of learnt from the best. So, got passed down, was pretty heavy and would push us a fair bit, but like we needed it. I know for a fact that I needed it. I wouldn't be here, if it wasn't for it. So very grateful for that. But it's more like, there's more to it now. Like parents are like wanting to push their kids to like be on the water and like be like learn all these new stuff or whatever. But it's like, then they gotta force them to like post on Instagram, and like parents are going out and buying like $10,000 cameras and like filming and like all this other stuff. So it's just like a lot more to the picture than it was.
More of the not wakeboarding stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's different if you're like, okay, let's go learn some tricks every single day. We'll do that. It's like, no, let's learn some tricks, and then we'll spend even more time like editing and trying to find a song and all these trends and shit like that. So
yeah, it was a lot more simple.
Yeah.
When I was kind of coming through.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess, is this one of those like hindsight situations where in the moment your dad's pushing you and you're like, man, I don't know if like, I don't love this maybe, but then looking back, you're like, that was exactly what
100%
is why it's happened.
I 100% needed it. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't be here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment, I guess, so you're competing with, I mean, you said Noah was your friend, and you're obviously making friends with all the wakeboarders over here and the people that are going to the events. Was there any moments where it goes from I'm friends with these people to, okay, I'm still friends, but like I need to beat you. Like I have to win, to like keep doing this thing. Was there ever one moment, or was it just like a slow progression of, no, I want to beat everybody here?
It was a slow progression, but I think like my first few years on tour and stuff, like I was like uber competitive with like every aspect of life. And like I'd be riding with Harley and Dowdy and like all the best wakeboarders in the world, and I felt like I like needed to push myself to prove that I could do it. So I almost had like a little bit of, it almost came from like arrogance and like ego in a way, that like I just needed to like prove to myself that like I could actually do this.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like after I won my second title, I was like, okay, like it's not a fluke. Like I can do this. I've proven it to myself. Like I'm happy. I can take it. Like I can take a breath.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, to prove that I belong. It's like I do belong here. I just need to get some dubs.
Yeah,
You know?
I need to prove it to myself.
Yeah.
And I just like the only path that I could see was I just like needed to be very competitive with everything, whether if it was riding, learning new stuff. And it was like right when like Dowdy was taking stuff very seriously as well. So like he'd like set out like a whole like program of like what he was doing on like the hour basis every day. So like I'd like ride with him every day and I'd see what he's doing in a day and I'm like, oh well, shit. Like,
What's this day look like? Because this sounds like there's a lot to it.
dude, he'd have like breathe like on the hour, like breathing techniques like that he needed to do on the hour. I needed to eat at a certain hour. I needed to stretch, go to the gym at a certain hour, like ice bath at a certain hour. Like he had his day like programmed. Yeah. So I'd ride with him every day and be like, well, dude, like he's winning.
Yeah.
Like I got to do that and more to beat that. So like that's like kind of the path that I kind of went down for a little bit. And once I like found my own little rhythm and found what works for me and had like a couple dubs under my belt, I was like, okay, like I can actually relax down, enjoy it for what it is and not have this like self pressure.
So much rigidity to that's so interesting to me that Dowdy was like so. I mean, it makes sense. He seems like the kind of guy that would be very structured like that, and it obviously did work. When did cold plunges come into the picture for you? And how many more titles would you have if cold plunges came in earlier?
Oh, so much more. Yeah, I think Dowdy introduced it to me. It was like all kind of when it kind of started kicking off, I guess. But yeah, I remember it was funny. Like Dowdy got a hot tub, and I was like, oh, well, I need a hot tub. So I like went out and bought the same hot tub as him. And then like he went and bought like a big like Yeti cooler to like put ice in and stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, like I wanted ice bath.
He could have sabotaged you by being like, all right, I'm going to get a 6-pack of beer every single night.
Probably.
Corey, this is what I do. I drink a 6-pack every night.
I mean, that's my first few years in Orlando were definitely like that. But
Oh, I love it. So I think it's time we dive into the LF'n Wheel of Questions presented by Liquid Force.
The LF'n Wheel of Questions.
Okay, let's go.
hell yeah.
So if you can reach that, go ahead and grab that down and bring it on the table, and we'll give it a spin.
Eh?
Yeah. Right in the middle, perfect. Yeah, give it a
Just give her a
give
little-
it a big spin. Yeah, well, that was
It's actually pretty tight.
that was a brutal spin. Last slam you took. So what's the last? I mean, a good one, right? Like a good slam, and it doesn't have to be on a wakeboard. It could be foiling, surfing, go-karting. I don't know.
I guess the last like kind of hit the deck moment was like back home in Australia where my ankle just gave out and like I literally took a step. Like my girlfriend like came up and gave me a cuddle and I caught her, went to take a step and we both just like hit the deck and like it just gave out like that. And I was like, all right, my ankle's like something's wrong here. So, but other than that, like being hit by the foil a few times.
Your own foil or somebody else's?
My own foil.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I guess like obviously my last bad one was when I smashed up my ankle. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good time to talk about the ankle because we got a Patreon question from Bill Porter. So if you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, join that
Bill.
Patreon. Means a lot. Helps keep the podcast going. So he said, recently heard that you've been dealing with some real issues with your ankle, as he talked about. And I didn't know this, and I don't know if this is true or not, but he's saying it came from a misdiagnosis of damage to your ankle. Is that true that it was, I guess just run through the story of your ankle and how the misdiagnosis and then now.
Yeah. So I was like,
put that back if you want.
all right, bet. So yeah, full like properly 12 months ago. It was at the Hyperlight shoot last year, and day 2 was out there. Just I think we were shooting a session with both Rod and Spence, and came down on a double tantrum and just like lost where I was in the air. And like, when people talk about the one crash that you don't want to have on a double tantrum or a tootsie roll or like whatever, like the one thing you don't want to do, I did, and just came down super hard on my back ankle, like just pushed my ankle in the water, got jacked up. and smashed it up pretty bad. So that was day 2 of the week shoot for Hyperlight. Obviously couldn't ride the rest of the shoot and just hung out. Got home a week later, went straight in, got an MRI here in Orlando, like across from the hospital on Orange or whatever. And the MRI came back as a high ankle sprain and a bone bruise. And the doctor was like, 6 weeks, you'll be fine. You're good to go. So went and got a cortisone shot and then spent 8 weeks on the couch. Gave it like, I had the time, so I gave it like an extra couple weeks just to like really let it settle down. Got back in the riding, rode the rest of the season, but never like got better, never improved. I was like bracing it up. Rusty gave me like, he's sponsored by this company called Space Brace. He gave me one of them, and I was like taping it up every session and just like getting through sessions and getting through events and stuff.
But it obviously wasn't right.
No.
Okay.
That was never like a session or like a ride that like it just wasn't a thought. It was pretty jacked up, and like I knew that the whole year, but from what I was diagnosed, I was like, I'm fine. Like, just forget about it. It's got to be good. Like,
it's in my head or something.
Yeah, like you'll be right, you know? So I rode the season out and somehow ended up like having an amazing year and ended up winning the tour last year, which was epic, and came home and I'm like, all right, I'm really going to give my ankle some time to like really let it do its thing, because it's obviously hasn't improved through the season. Riding's not going to help it. So I went home, took 3 months off, didn't really do a whole lot, foiled a little bit in the ocean, but was like actively kind of just like staying away from doing like a lot of stuff just to really let everything settle down. January rolls around, start getting back into wakeboarding again, and still like didn't really feel right. Like was still bracing it up, and like there was never a moment where I was like, all right, like it got better, but not to the point where it was just like not a thought. And I had like a week and a half's riding in January. Didn't feel good, and then hit the deck at home and ankle gave out, and I'm like, all right, like something's not right. It's been 6 months for a 6-week injury. Like there's like nothing's adding up here, you know? So I went and got a new scan done. I got it the day before Australia Day, which is like your 4th of July. And it came back where the ankle was shattered. Both exterior and interior ligaments were done. And there was like a bunch of broken bones like in the ankle joint.
What was First Buddy looking at, dude? Different scan?
Yeah. So I was annoyed because my life when I would have gone back home would have been very different if I would have known the situation. I would have rode the season out, would have done the exact same thing. But as soon as I got home, it would have been very different. So it was just like, you can only act on the information that you've been given. But it was just like, it was just annoying. I was just like, come on. Like how do you miss so much? Yeah. You know, and it wasn't like I went and re-injured my ankle and like actually like broke my ankle this second time. Like it just gave out, and it was the same injury 6 months later, but just was never noticed. Yeah. So I was just like, all right, this kind of shit.
That's wild.
So this is like, this is 4 or 5 weeks before the first event in Australia, NUMB, down in Melbourne. So I was really lucky. I got connected with the best people in their fields, and I got had surgery with this one guy who does like all the football players and action sports athletes and stuff in Australia. He's like the ankle guy in Brisbane in the city. So had a meeting with him, told him like the whole story from the last like 6 months. He goes, all right, well, you can obviously use your ankle, just not well. So went in for a surgery, had a keyhole surgery, and he's kind of took out like some bone fragments just to try and loosen the ankle joint up a little bit, kind of like just putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone in a way. And he was like, all right, let's see how that goes. And try and compete in NUMB. So I pretty much hadn't ridden and had that week and a half riding, but hadn't ridden since September. And I was like 3 painkillers deep in NUMB, and just like it just never healed the way we kind of hoped it for. We were kind of hoping to get a little bit more freedom, but it just never really did. But I always had like a second surgery booked in for 2 days after the event, so I flew straight home. I got straight back in under the knife and fixed everything up from there.
So we're good to go now.
Yeah.
We're tip-top.
Yeah. So it's still not 100%. Like I still feel it when I ride.
Really? Okay.
Ankles are hard. They like, you can have an ankle injury and be recovered and rehabbed, but like you'll still flare it up. It won't, like, to get that last like 10% takes like 12 months.
Really?
So like, I'm sure I'm going to be dealing with like ankle flare-ups and stuff this year, and just got to have to like manage it. And yeah.
Hit the ice bath. I mean, that's what that's there for, right?
Hit the tub a few times. But yeah, it's frustrating, man. I've done like shoulders and like minor surgeries and stuff, but this has been like the most frustrating one.
Well, yeah, and it just feels like, at a sense, like time just like warped away because it was not correctly like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So that's got to be super frustrating.
So yeah, my life would have been very different if I just would have known.
Yeah.
But you can only really go off what you've been told, I guess.
So I guess Bill had a second part of that question. He's wondering, what advice would you give to someone who gets hurt on addressing the potential damage and then figuring out the best course of treatment? I mean, is there anything? You've had a few injuries now, so.
Yeah, I think couple things, I guess. You know your body better than anyone. And when something doesn't feel right, you know it. I kind of just like put my head in the sand and just like lived in denial for a little bit and was like, nah, I'm good. But like, you know, and just like, I don't know, just if something's not right, just get it checked out. Like I'm always like a big advocate for like, if I jack my knee up or my, like whatever it is, like just go get it scanned. Like it's like a couple $100, go get a scan, figure it out, deal with what you're dealing with, and then move on. And I guess the lesson that I really learned is like, you're probably gonna have to get a couple of different
get another opinion on it.
Yeah,
definitely.
But when.
Yeah, and you still even, I mean, obviously you got the diagnosis from the doctor, so you're like, okay, I trust what you said, but even still, you're saying you knew that. I knew my ankle was jacked up.
Yeah.
Like afterwards.
It wasn't right.
But it wasn't right, so like.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just like, all right, like time's gonna fix it, but I don't think time fixes that one.
You're gonna need a few years maybe for the bones to heal.
Yeah.
I think it's time we dive into a new segment, and it's called This or That.
Hell yeah.
So just quick, I'm gonna give you 2 options, and you're gonna pick one of them.
All right.
So first one, flips or spins. I mean, I guess you could say
Spins.
both if you want to do like mobs, but
Spins.
okay, spins.
Yeah, I think you can kind of make them look a little bit better.
Okay. Speaking of spins, spinning to the left or spinning to the right?
I spin a lot better to the left than I do to the right.
So spinning to the left.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Australia or USA?
Australia.
That's quick.
Australia's home, baby.
That was quick. Size up or size down when it comes to board size?
Okay. This is a funny one. So I spent like my whole career riding super small boards. I was riding, I think the biggest board I rode when I was at O'Brien was a 136, and I was like 21, 22 years old, like 5'10", probably like 175, 180 pound kid. Still riding like a 136, and was just like so like against like sizing up. I'm like, nah, like I could do my shit on this board. Like I had this thing in my head where like it was right around the time where wakes were getting big enough to where double flips were happening a lot more. But the pattern I saw was people, like not a lot of people were doing double flips, but the people that were riding bigger boards couldn't do that. So I just had something in my head that I was like, no, like if I ride a bigger board, it's not going to happen. And it's just not, like, I just had it in my head. So I rode a really small board for a long time, and went to Hyperlight, hopped on Noah's board. It was a 138. And then I thought that was like a really big board. And they ended up like, Noah had a really good season on his board that year, and he sold out of all the small sizes, so I was forced to ride a bigger size. So I hopped up to like the 142 or whatever, whatever size it was, and just got like super comfortable, and was obviously able to do everything on it, but just got comfortable riding a bigger board. And then the following year, I like order all my gear for the year, order a bunch of small boards, and got back on it, and just could not ride to save my life.
Couldn't go back.
Couldn't go back. So yes, size up. Does
Okay,
feel a lot
that's
better.
interesting. I was curious because I was watching some old videos, and we'll get into I think NUMB, which will be a good edit to go over. But the boards were
Small.
If you're looking for them online, you can just go to the website and sort by kids, and then you'll see the size board that it's
that I
small.
was riding.
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
that's interesting to hear because I feel like boat riders always have typically been on the small side, and then it's now just recently gone a little bit bigger, and that's.
Well, I think the technology's changed too, right? Where you could get away with riding a smaller board 10 years ago because the wakes were a lot smaller. So I think you need that extra length with like just how much that board is actually riding up the wake.
Interesting.
Like the wakes are so big now that you just need more time under you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. And I guess the boards are even lighter than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. So if swing weight's something you believe in, I'm not a big believer, but if you do, then you don't have as much anymore.
That's it.
So there you go. Last one, this or that, toe side double or heel side double back roll.
Well, I guess whichever is easier on the day.
Well, what would make one easier? I guess I don't know.
Whatever's hitting, whatever's working
hitting?
on that day. Yeah, they're a funny relationship, those two tricks. So whatever's working that
All right,
day.
whatever you feel, whatever ways the wind's blowing, I guess. So let's talk about NUMB. I talked about that a little bit. It was an edit by Louis Watt, right?
Louis Watt, another Australian wakeboarder who absolutely ripped. He worked with like the Hyperlight crew for a little bit. And yeah, we kind of grew up, like everyone kind of grew up riding together in Australia who ended up like moving overseas and stuff. So I knew him for a long time. We lived together at my old place for a season or two. And that was when we had kind of filmed that video.
Yeah. And there was some heat that needs to be talked about in that video. So, I mean, first one, I think the nose grab toe 10 is like not a lot of 10s are grabbed. Like people, grabbing on wakeboarding is so much different than other sports because you have the handle. So it's very hard to truly grab spins over 720, I feel like. Like you get some front nines that like get a good grab on them, but on the boat I'm talking about right now. But
yeah,
the nose grab toe 10, I mean, that was almost a full 180, maybe more of full finger contact on the board. So I was going to give you
I think I got one finger on there or something.
I couldn't tell. It was grabbed. Dude. It was like a really good toe 10 that was grabbed. I mean, the whole video was good.
Well, I appreciate that.
But
yeah.
the other one I want to talk about was wake to wake toe 12. Was this your first 12?
Yeah, that was the first one. So I remember I was trying it for a few years before it, on and off. Like I'd have like a day or two where I'd just try it, commit to it, wouldn't obviously get any close. And then Dowdy caught wind of it and ended up doing it for his X Games.
That's how that happened.
That's how it happened. Yeah. So like, I saw him do it. I was like, fuck, man. Like, whatever. That's past. I don't need to do that anymore. And then obviously filming that video part, I was like, you know, I want to try and revisit this. And it was nice. I think I shot a lot of that video behind a G. And back then, there was a kid, Elliot Digney from Australia, who was like renowned for having the biggest wake in Orlando. He just slammed his boat, absolutely slammed it. And it was just one of those like magical afternoons, like crazy sunset, sick crew, vibes were super high, and yeah, ended up sneaking one out, which was nice.
And that was wake to wake, right? Just flat off the wake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are our thoughts on the 14? Because this 12, I mean, this edit was what, 6 years ago maybe?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Probably something like that, okay.
Yeah. I've thought about it off the dub.
Have you tried?
I haven't tried.
Okay.
And I haven't done a lot of 12s off a double up. So, but it's definitely been, like, I have thought about it. Actually, I haven't put anything into action yet, but it's been a thought.
Because what's your toe 10? Is it switch toe 10 or regular switch toe 10?
The one I do mostly is switch.
Okay, and that was a switch toe 12?
Yes.
So I feel like the switch toe 10 is pretty locked down. Like you got that pretty consistent wake to wake.
Well, I guess like it's like anything. You do anything for a long period of time, and you get better and better at it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I first did a 1080 when I was 15. So like I've been doing them for 10 years now. So when you do something for so long, you just get better at doing it, I guess, or just more comfortable.
Yeah.
But I remember like when COVID first hit, I like got a brand new Paragon from Nautique, and there was like no events that year, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna load this boat as much as I can and just have like the sickest wake to ride on all year. And that year I was like smashing out like 2 or 3 a set. The wake was just so stupidly big. It was dumb. It was so dumb how big that wake was. And there was just so much time, so I was like kind of smashing it out of it then. But off the double up, I definitely think like it is possible. It's just like,
Oh, it's for sure possible. Yeah.
yeah, double ups are hard with how big the wakes are now, and it's like a switch toe side approach. So it's like hit or miss. Like you got to get a good takeoff or you not. But I definitely think it could be done.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. Haven't tried one though.
I haven't, but I have thought about it. Not in depth, but I've thought about it.
Thought about it in depth. Oh man, because I feel like we were talking on a shop talk with Finn and Thomas and Garrett the other day about what the next NBD is going to be behind the boat, and because we were talking about the double front roll, which obviously still don't know why nobody did the double front roll for forever. Like
I know why.
Because it break your knees, break your legs.
You sack.
Really?
Oh, dude. I remember
Coming up on your butt and then
oh
just,
my God. I tried some when I was younger, and it was like the most painful thing I've ever experienced. Like,
It's some Driftline. Shout out Driftline. They got the wetsuit line board
yeah.
shorts there for so they
He
get a
did
little
something
protection,
then.
dude.
Yeah. But dude, like hours afterwards, just be on fire.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. That.
Bad. I was like,
I wonder if he took any. I don't think he talked about it, but
I think he got lucky.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
skirted through that one.
Yeah. Or he just must have some small ones on him or something. But
Just gonna worry about that.
Tom will be the first to admit it too. Don't worry.
I mean, but seriously though, what do you think would be the next NBD on the boat? Because I mean, we're talking 14. Obviously, triple was done. Triple might not ever get done again. Who knows? But what do you think? Heel front 12 could be.
Yeah, I've come close to that. I've come close to heel front 12. I think like you just look at. I think from now on in, like we can start to look at like different variations of doubles. The 4 main ones have been done and doing pretty consistently by a lot of different people now. So I feel like anything, it's just like it's adding rotations now. You know, like every way has been, everyone rotates all 4 ways around a wakeboard now. So it's like finding a completely different way to rotate is almost next to impossible. I feel like boys like Massey and stuff are doing a really good job.
What do you mean by completely different way to rotate?
Well, it's like front flip, front flip, backside, back flip, front side, back flip, backside. Like they're like the 4 ways
Staples,
to really rotate on a wakeboard. So like now that that's been done and progressed into like Mode 5s and Mode 7s and stuff, like you're adding rotations on essentially whatever it is. So it's like adding a 180 or adding a flip or adding both, you know? So it's like, I'm sure with the technology that's only improving year after year and wakes are getting bigger and bigger, like I'm sure triple flips will come around. But I think it's just like adding rotations and adding flips.
Like doubles to blind and stuff. Like
yeah.
Obviously double tantrum blind's been done quite a few times. And then
yeah, but you could, I'm sure like, I mean, Massey for example, or like Sam would be like a perfect example of someone that could like go out and do like a double toe side roll to blind, or
I was just thinking that one too.
Something like that, you know, or like just finding different ways to rotate in double flips. I think it's going to be like the next.
And I think personally that will be a really cool progression of wakeboarding. Like I think that next step will be very interesting to watch.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like double flips are definitely cool and unique, and it's sweet that we've got all of them done now. But like that next step is the more interesting step.
Oh yeah.
Because like I don't know, for a lot of reasons, but
yeah.
Speaking of which, I wanted to talk about this. I was going to touch on this later, but this is a good time to talk about it. Like, where do you see wakeboarding going in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of like progression of tricks? And obviously wakes will continue to maybe get bigger. I don't know, but like, where do you see the, like, in a contest pass, you know, in the next 5, 10, 15 years? What could that look like?
Such a hard question because I know like 10 years ago, we wouldn't have even been thinking about what we're doing now.
True.
You know, so I guess you can just look at the trajectory of the sport and where it's come from with like double flips being a normal thing and 1080s being a normal thing. And I feel like really where the sport's in a really cool era now where it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And I think with the younger generation of riders coming through, they understand that a lot more. And I think new tricks are always going to be done, but I think it's like really exciting to see like how these tricks are being done. Like again, like Sam's like the perfect example of it. Like he's doing stuff that like couldn't have even been done 10 years ago, but he's doing them in ways that like I wouldn't have even thought of, or like the majority of the wakeboarding industry wouldn't have even had a thought of even being possible of doing. So yeah, I think it's more like how everything's going to be done and adding that like personal flavor and like your own personality into your riding, which then like in full circle is why wakeboarding was created. It's a craft rather than like, I mean, it is a sport, but like it is a craft.
Yeah.
You know?
It's interesting. Dove deep there. I like that. So like, I guess, what do you see wakeboarding as? Because you are, I feel like if someone were to put you in a box, they'd be like, yeah, Cory's a competitive wakeboarder. He's there to win contests. But what does wakeboarding, I mean, I guess mean to you? Does it mean that like, is wakeboarding a sport to you that you want to win and like dominate? Or is it like a lifestyle activity and, you know, art form or creativity outlet?
Yeah, for wakeboarding for me, first and foremost is I think the main reason why I love to wakeboard is because it is my outlet that I get to escape the real world. And like every time I wakeboard, you're so present in what you're doing and being on the boat and having fun. And it's like the only really time like my brain's just like constantly going, like this consistent, just random thoughts popping in my head. But like every time I get on a wakeboard, that's just all clear. And I finally have like a clear head to be able to go and do whatever I dedicate myself into doing. And for my whole career, that's been competing and trying to win the next event and what's going to allow me to win the next event and what do I need to do. So for me, it's like just the best escape and the best like outlet to just get away and have fun and enjoy myself in like a period of time that I can just get to be free and flow and have fun and actually get to dedicate myself to something, which like I need direction in my life. Like if I don't have like something that I'm working towards or something that like I have to actually turn my brain to actually working, like having something to work to, I start to spiral.
Well, and I think that's a reason, like a part of the reason why like these action sports like skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, wakeboarding are all so cool, because it's not, I don't know if I compare it to other sports like basketball or soccer where you can kind of stand around like, you know, and just hang out like, okay, the ball's not by me. I don't need to do that much. I don't need to think that much.
Yeah.
And then when I have the ball, like I go shoot, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Wakeboarding, all these other sports, it's like, no, you have to be on. Like if you want to go try a trick wake to wake or at the cable, go try like some, you know, variation of a grind or whatever, like you're only thinking about that. That's all that you can think about is that. You can't think about like how your day was going earlier. Otherwise you're just going to eat shit. Like
100%.
So yeah, it's a beautiful thing about these sports that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, 100%. And that is where the passion for competing comes in for me, because I'm such a big believer in like you're on your own. Like you have like your support crew and people that help you out. But at the end of the day, like when you compete, you can't hide. And for me, competing is a direct influence of how my life at home is going. So like if I'm doing all the right things and ticking all the right boxes, then I will be competing well. And if I don't compete to my own expectation or the way that I would like to, then like that's a direct influence of like how I've been living at home. So like for me, that's like
interesting.
Yeah. So it's just like it's like a consistent like reassurance of like, am I on the right path?
Yeah. It's like a checks and balance. That's very interesting to hear. So got a Patreon question that relates to all this from Josh Boyle. And he's wondering, when you can no longer ride at the level you currently ride at, do you think you'll still wakeboard for the joy of it, or will you mostly give it up?
I'll definitely still be wakeboarding for sure. I mean, wakeboarding's been literally my entire life. And I'm so grateful to have the life that I have lived, but it's all been through what wakeboarding has been able to provide for me. And I know my life would be very different if I never got introduced to the sport. I wouldn't be here in Orlando.
Probably wouldn't be cold plunging.
Probably wouldn't be cold plunging,
yeah.
you know? So yeah,
that's
like,
good to hear.
I'm sure the body will start to slow down in a little bit. I mean, I'm still pretty young. I'm 26. So I still got a fair while left, but like it's still a passion that I love and I get to do every day. So like, even if I'm longer down the track, not involved in the industry or like what in the same matter and same role that I am now, like I'll still always have a passion for it and still be unbelievably grateful for what this industry has given me.
That's good to hear. Because I feel like I was talking to Dean, you mentioned you were listening to that podcast, and we both found it kind of interesting that a lot of pros, ex-pros, I guess, once they're done, they're just completely done. And I'm curious to see, why do you think that is? I mean, as a current pro, why do you think some of the people who are in it just completely stop?
I think like it's probably multiple different things. Like it depends on the people, right? Like, talking about Trevor just before, he's like moved into like a team manager role, and I think like that's like the perfect position for
Trevor Maurer
someone
at Hyperlight,
like that. Like I think that he's gonna crush that role, and he's still a part of the industry. You look at Dean; he spent his whole life in the industry. Given he's back home in Australia, you probably don't see a lot of him, but like he's the full-time rep for Hyperlight in Australia. Amber works with Slingshot Australia, so like they're still like very heavily involved. They like Dean and Amber run like the grassroots stuff, events and stuff back home, so they're still heavily involved. You look at Sean and Rusty, they're definitely too old to still be wakeboarding, but they're still so involved in the sport and have such an important role that like, yeah, I think it just like everyone that has kind of moved on to the next aspect of their life, they're like, it's given them everything. So they still want to give back and be a part of the industry.
Yeah. And Sean Murray is very interesting because like, I'm pretty sure I just saw him crank out like a beautiful wake to wake toe 7 and like, which is insane. I watched the clip like 4 times. I was like, that's just like so cool to see that he's proving that you can still get after it and do it.
He's
like
ripping.
You don't have to do wake to wake toe 7. You can do whatever you want, but like he's still ripping.
Yeah.
At his age.
He still goes hard. Like he did Crow 5 first go the other day when I went and rode with him. And I've been talking to him for years. I want to teach him like a double flip or a 1080.
How nuts would that be, dude?
It's so doable. That's the thing. Like the wakes are so big now that
he's so dialed, dude. Like
he knows how to ride a wakeboard.
He knows how.
He knows how to ride these big wakes, and the wakes are so big now that like double flip's not that difficult.
Yeah,
realistically.
And he's had so much time on the board, dude. Like
he knows what he's doing.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, he's got more knowledge than anyone else in the industry on a wakeboard. So I've had like multiple conversations about it. Like we want to make it.
Is he thinking about it? Is he receptive to the idea?
Oh, he's down for the idea.
He is? Okay.
Yeah, it's just like matter of time, like when we actually get to connect, and he's like dealing with a little, like his body's like always like jacked up just because of wakeboarding and stuff. So it'll happen. It definitely will happen.
Okay, I love that. That'd be a cool video. I'm sure that'd go viral on TikTok right there.
I'd hope. So. It'd be sick for her, and that'd be so cool.
I think we dive into a segment called Deserve Some Love, which is presented by Driftline. Mentioned him earlier, but if you need new boardies, these are the best boardies in the game. They got a wetsuit liner in them, so it keeps you warm, keeps you protected if you're trying those double front rolls. Keep the little guys protected.
Perfect for the double front rolls.
If you want to grab a pair, use code GRAB15 for 15% off. The link is in the show notes. So Deserve Some Love is basically just an opportunity to give anybody in your life, could be wakeboarding or not related, just some love that they deserve. So
I've always thought it was kind of like Dean spoke about it too, but Mitch Langfield had like a very interesting career, but I always thought he was the most talented wakeboarder that had ever stepped on a wakeboard. He was so unbelievably good and so ahead of his time that like he just got super unlucky with injuries and stuff. But his career path would have been very different if like he didn't have, I think he did like 3 knees back to back.
Yeah.
And like I grew up with Mitch. Like I first met him when I was 5, 6 years old. So I've known him for a very long time. I don't see him much now, but yeah, even like the early days of like him riding at Somerset, and he'd like where his career really took a trajectory and started to get really good was he started riding on this private lake back home. It was called Lake Joyda. And it was like literally just this tiny little pond, like, and it was like a perfect, like 360-degree protected lake. And he was the only boat on that lake, and he would ride for 2 hours at a time, multiple times a day, and just get unbelievably good. So he was like so ahead of his time. He was the reason why Harley got so good at wakeboarding.
Yeah.
Like I remember, it was pretty fun. Like back before like kind of editing programs and like video stuff was like really a thing. Like we'd sequenced a shot. Well, not me, but he sequenced a shot doing like a super late backside 5, and then had another sequence shot of a backside 7 off the wake. And he like photoshopped it to make it look like he did a backside 9 off the wake. And it was like one of like the first ones like ever, like anyone had ever seen. And it was just like such a strong talking point back then. But yeah, he would have made such a big impact.
Yeah. I've heard that from multiple people, Dean obviously being one, and you as well, but just like, yeah, ran into a unfortunate streak of injuries, and that's just, there's only so much you can do it at a certain point, right? If you're running into that bug. So
I mean, 3 knees back to back, that's hard.
Yeah. Brutal.
For any sport in any industry. Like,
yeah.
It's hard.
Tough. It's a good name though, Mitch Langfield. So
yeah.
I was digging up some clips when I was going through watching, and I was just like, yeah, he just had it, dude. He had it. Like, I mean, he still rips, I'm sure, if he rides, but like, yeah, just, I feel like some people have that X factor. They just like have the it.
Yeah.
He's one of them.
He was one of them. 100%. Yeah. He was innovating stuff that like still, it got kind of like took on with like a bunch of people like doing stuff to the flats, and he was doing like blind Pete's to the flats, back 7s to the flats, like just stuff that shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
He was just making it look so easy, and just had just such a relaxed ease style to him that it just looked effortless.
And he was riding with a lot of the clips, just this massive watch. So that can't make it even easier. He's got to weigh a ton on his wrist there.
Yeah. I mean, he had good companies too. He was like, had Red Bull and Rip Curl and stuff back in the day. So
yeah,
he was on his way, and then just injury got the best of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. I think it's time to talk about O'Brien to Hyperlight. So you mentioned you're on O'Brien for what close to 15 years probably, and you're saying
it was a long time.
A little under that probably, but
yeah.
So I got a question from Derek Davis, Patreon question, and he wants you to talk about the 3-year O'Brien deal and then the quick transition to Hyperlight right after the first Nautique regatta.
Yeah, I have a lot of time for O'Brien. They were, they helped me through my early stages of my career, and they were a big part of the rider I became. But I was, it was all kind of like COVID, like I'm sure made a big difference. And at the end of the day, like I had a big meeting with the head guy at O'Brien, and I was getting paid a certain amount of money, which I knew was like a gravy train. I knew that like none of these contracts existed in the industry anymore. And I knew that like that contract wasn't really kind of normal. So I was on a 5-year deal on great money. Had a great salary, had great incentives, and like knew it was like, yeah, this is sick. And it got to a point where they just like had like wakeboard sales were like less than 1% of the whole business, or like 1% of the business. So they were like, what are we doing? Like, we're paying you so much and we're just not getting anything out of it. And for me, it was hard because they were all like already kind of transitioning into like a lifestyle industry, making like soft goods with like life jackets and like all this and like
Yeah, like the
blow-up
Margaritaville
mats
stuff
and,
or
yeah,
that kind of long.
yeah. So that
something
stuff
like that,
was
yeah.
like trickling in the last few years I was there. So I like could definitely see it coming, but yeah, and I'm sure COVID made like a big impact on it. Their sales made a big impact on it, but yeah, they pretty much cut my contract by a fair bit. And it was like mid contract as well, and I don't know, it got to a point where I was like, am I going to ride for the same amount of money that I was getting paid when I was 15, 10 years ago than I am now? Like I just didn't think that was right.
You're going backwards here.
Yeah. So they still offered me to pay me money, but I said, thank you for everything. I'm out, and was like fully willing and open to riding board sponsorless for however long I needed. And pretty much just said, thank you for everything, but this is where we part ways and can't really continue anymore. And so I left O'Brien on my own accord, and kind of just reached out to a couple people. I reached out to Sean for Hyperlight, and I reached out to Parks about Ronix, and I reached out to Watson for Liquid Force, and with no intention, I was just like, hey guys, like this has happened. And this is in December too. So like every company's got their budget set. Nothing's going to happen. And I was just like, hey, like I've left O'Brien. If there's anything ever in the future, just please keep me in mind. Like that'd be great. I'm riding sponsorless this year. So like if anything comes up in the future, like let's have some chats and to see if it'll work. And I had a conversation with Greg Nelson from Hyperlight, and he was just unbelievably enthusiastic, and his energy around it was super positive. And when you can read someone straight off the bat, and there's like good intentions, and there's just such a good energy and feel towards it. I was like, all right, like this has got to be it. So I signed with Hyperlight, and I didn't get paid the first year. Rode just for boards and all of that jazz, but it was just like it was the best thing I've ever done. Felt like I was like a part of a team again. I was like a one person team at O'Brien, kind of like pushing the wakeboarding side, and they weren't really following that as much. So like it just kind of re-sparked like my passion for things again. I was
That's
like,
sick,
what? Like this, it feels so right, and the energy was there. And then I went to my first shoot, and all my best friends are on Hyperlight, like Noah, Sean, Rusty, like got to meet Trev that first year. I'd known Josh from like doing like the junior tour and stuff. So it was just a perfect fit, and I just felt at home straight away. Like they welcomed me in with open arms, and it was epic.
That's sick.
Yeah.
So you did decide. I was just wondering, I was going to ask why you switched, but you kind of ran through the entire story there. So that totally makes sense. I didn't know you rode that first year just for Dex. But you did film like a proper welcome to the team edit. I mean, I would say proper, like some very good tricks, like a decent length edit too that had, and I just feel like that doesn't happen anymore really in terms of like I guess there's not a lot of switching going on, but like people start riding new boards and like they're on a team or whatever. It just seems quiet. Why did you decide to film that edit? Was that filmed in that first year when you were I guess it was over just a couple days probably.
Yeah, it was filmed in the first month.
Okay.
Yeah, they sent me a board and sent a filmer out and said, go have fun. But I think like, obviously everyone just blasts stuff out on social media now, and it's like all like right in your face, and it's nice that you can get unlimited information at any point in time, that you can just go on your phone and look something up. But I've been with O'Brien for over 10 years. That was like my image was O'Brien. Everyone that knew myself for wakeboarding would attach myself and O'Brien together straight away.
Yeah.
And both parties, myself and Hyperlight, felt like we needed to break that stigma as much as possible. And it was also a big thing. Like I was with the company for 10 years throughout my whole professional career. And then overnight something happens and I switched to the next, like the best brand in the industry, essentially. So we wanted to do it right, and we wanted to like kind of give it the respect that it almost deserved, because it was such a big thing for myself to transition to another wakeboard company that like I thought I was going to be with O'Brien for my whole career, and I was fully okay with that, and I was stoked. And like I said, they were epic and they were unbelievable, and they were such an important part through my early stages of my career. But yeah, we just felt like we needed to like break that stigma as much as possible and just get myself connected with the Hyperlight brand as best as we could.
Something more than just posting on Instagram with a tag of the new board brand.
Hey, I'm with Hyperlight. Woo! You know, like, yeah.
I agree with that. And I think that I feel like nowadays the full length edit, 3 minute to 5 minute is like what I consider a full length edit for one person.
Yeah.
But I feel like doesn't happen as much anymore because it's all so focused on social media, but it helps things feel real when you do have that separate dedicated piece of like longer content like that to be like, okay, this happened. It's like, here's this piece of content to show you, like, here's the staple of this. It's happened. You know what I mean? So
I think it's more impacting to people now. Like, we went through a stage where everyone brought out a full length edit at the end of the year. That was like, you had to do that. That was like your thing to try to get your name out there. And then that switched very quickly into just posting 5-second clips on Instagram every day. Yeah. And you know everything, but you forget everything straight away. So we, just wanted to just do something a little more impactful that hopefully stuck in people's heads a little bit.
Yeah, I think you did. I think it does. I mean, obviously I'm talking about it for a reason right now. And obviously you put effort into it too. It wasn't just, I'm going to go do, I think there was double Indy Tantrum to Blind in there. There was some heat, you know what I mean? It wasn't just like.
Yeah, I think I connected with, it was cool because I was obviously still back in Australia. So Hyperlight were really sick about like letting me pick a filmer and working with him and stuff. So I picked a guy called Makeo, rides on the Sunshine Coast.
Makeo Mundy?
Yeah. He's a legend.
Oh, yeah.
He's epic. So, yeah, I think we smashed that out in like 2 days. I think we had like an afternoon session and then a morning session. And then we got back off the boat, did the interviews, and we're like, all right, we're out of here. See you later.
That's athlete stuff right there, professional, dude. Just get in, get out.
Yeah. Yeah, we smashed that one out pretty quick. It was sick.
Love it. I mean,
crushed it.
I think it's a good time to talk about your setup. So let's hear rope length, speed, board size, stance. Just when you go out for a ride, what's it looking like?
Rope length, 75 feet, speed, 22 and a half. I guess it depends on the boat and how much weight's in it. But behind my setup, it's got a G, got some weight in it, 22 and a half. Do it good enough. Board length, 143. Ride the big boy board now.
There you go.
Yeah. Took me a while. It took me 10 years to get there, but I got there. And stance, one in. I ride pretty straight on my angle.
Interesting.
For my bindings, I ride very, very straight on. Growing up, I had knee issues when I was younger. I was probably just like growing pains. But like I spoke to this physio and he was like, yeah, like you bring your bindings in more straight, you'll probably have less pain. I was like, all right, I'll try it. And it worked back then. It's never really changed.
I mean, it used to now. I've always thought that was interesting, dude. I never, you know what I mean? Like my dumb brain like thinks, the knee is supposed to bend like straight, not ducked.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
But it takes pressure off your knees, but it just puts it all into my back. So my back's like done.
Damn.
Yeah, my back and hips are
carrying the
done,
team. It's tough.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's and what was the board you say?
Capital loaded.
Because that's your board, right?
Yeah.
And you got 2 constructions on that, just normal, and then, or is that not just the loaded?
Two constructions. There's like the regular and the high performance. Loaded's like the high performance one. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Love it. Let's talk foiling. So we were talking foiling a little bit before the podcast started.
Dude, I can talk about foiling all day. Let's go.
Don't worry, we're not going to talk about foiling all day, listeners, just for a little bit. 1 to 10, how loyal are you to the foil?
Pretty loyal, man. I think so fun. That's like, it's my motivation to wakeboard this year. I have to wakeboard well so that I get to foil at the end of the day and have fun.
Okay, I didn't see that coming. On a serious note of foiling, though, I mean, it's been getting way more popular, both in the ocean and behind the boat. So all sorts of people getting out there on the foil. What does it provide that wakeboarding doesn't for you, whether that's on the boat or in the ocean?
Well, I guess for me, like wakeboarding has become very strongly, even though it is a passion for me, it has become a job. I consider wakeboarding as my job. I've always been very advocate for wakeboarding is what I do. It's not who I am. I feel like I am more of a person I have more to myself than wakeboarding. Like I live at the beach back home. I am in the ocean every day. I just feel like there's a lot more to it. I kind of consider it as like someone that's like a doctor, right? Like being a doctor is something that you do. It's not exactly who you are as a person. And I've always kind of had that feeling with wakeboarding. So even though I do get to do something that I love every single day, for me, it very much is a job. And foiling is like my way of like enjoying, like I get the best parts out of my job, but I like fully have no expectations, no obligations. I get to go out, have fun. And if I just want to cruise and sit on the second wave or like be in the front wave and trying to do like as hard a turns I can, or like spend time in the ocean and learn the ocean on a foil and stuff. Like for me, it's like my fun that I haven't really gotten to experience in a very long time because wakeboarding took over and got very serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I feel like Gunther was saying, you know, I had him on a long time ago and he was like, it's just fun to learn something else on the water. And it's like,
and that too,
like be a beginner or intermediate. Like,
yeah. And that was like, it is very, very different to like everything that we've ever learned growing up doing board sports and water sports. Like you have to forget everything. Like you go into it with a little bit of ego. Well, and I did anyway. I was like, yeah, I know. Like, I know how to foil it, bro. I got humbled quick. So you do have to like forget everything that you've ever learned, and you do get to like, learn something new. And it's like, it's rare to find that you get to learn something new now. Like,
yeah, especially a new, like it's basically a new sport.
Yeah.
Like wakeboarding was however many years ago. This is basically a new sport, which is cool. Still not as cool as wakeboarding, but it's cool.
It's cool.
Who would you say is the best all-around water athlete? People call it the waterman, but I don't know if I love that word. But who's like the, I guess, waterman?
Water athlete. I mean, there's definitely like a lot of people are getting more talented now that they get to like have time to kind of branch off and start to foil and surf and do other things. But I think I'd speak on behalf of a lot of people in this industry that there's really only one person in the industry that is doing it well, and it's Noah Flegel.
Yeah. Shout out Redheads.
Fuck yeah.
I think I would agree with, I think everyone would agree
There's
with
no
that
argument.
It's yeah.
There's no argument. The man's going out and surfing 40-foot jaws and then going out and doing 1080s the next day.
Yeah.
And then going and ripping flips on foils and surfing 1 foot chop in the ocean.
Pretty sure you can kickflip on a wake skate too. Like,
yeah.
And he's surfing. I feel like he could go on the surf tour or whatever, and like your pro wakeboard tour with the surfing. I feel
like he
hold his own.
He goes and tows like big waves with Kai and John and all the good, like unbelievable guys in Hawaii. Like he is unbelievable. I was actually having a good chat to Spencer Norris about this at the shoot last week. And it was really like, he was saying it was really cool for him to experience Noah in a different industry. But they were out towing on a big day one day, and the guy that was driving the jet ski for Spence, who was filming, was like full-time big wave surfer. I didn't get a name, but he was telling me that every time Noah would get towed in to a big wave, he was like purely frothing and like stoked on like the shit that Noah was able to do on such a big wave. So like he wasn't just getting like some random dude being like, oh, that's cool. Like he's in that industry and someone that hasn't spent a lot of time in big waves. Like Noah grew up South Florida, 1 foot chop. You know, like he hasn't spent a whole lot of time in
compared to all these other people.
To all these other Hawaiians. He's out there just getting thrown into bombs, and a big wave surfer is going, oh my God, this kid's good. That just shows how much talent
That's
he
like
has.
the stamp, because I feel like a lot of people in the industry, like towed water sports, would be like, oh yeah, Noah's like the best. And it's like, yeah. But then when you need to hear it from what he's doing outside.
Yeah.
Just that's a cool story to hear.
And it's funny too, like, people in Australia that like get into like foiling and stuff, like in the ocean or whatever, have like no connection to the wakeboarding industry or the boating industry at all. They're like, oh, like, do you know that Noah Flegel kid? Like, he's so good. He's like the best foiler ever. I'm like, dude, he's like my best mate. Like, I met him when I was 9 years old. Like, yeah, like, he's like, people like look up to him in like the foiling world. It's funny. And it's just like, yeah, it's Noah.
Wait till you see what else he can do too. It's crazy.
You can do more than just foil, I promise. Like, yeah, I don't think there's any argument there.
Yeah,
I think
kid's got
he's
it.
like he's the wakeboarding version of Kyle Lenny.
That's a high compliment. So if you're hearing that, Noah, yeah, that's give yourself a pat on the back there. Let's talk this year. So PWT's back. Obviously it's back every year, but you're back in the PWT. That was a statement.
PWT's back.
You're back in the PWT. So four events. I'm curious, if you don't win the overall PWT, so like at the end, the overall winner, is the season a failure?
It's funny, like the last few years for me, I look at it very different in the way that I ask myself every year. It gets more and more difficult for me to leave Australia every year. My brother's got 2 kids. He's got another one on the way. Leaving his kids is unbelievably difficult for me. I miss out on half their life every year that I get the opportunity to influence and help them grow up and become the people that they are. So for me, it's like, it is getting harder for me to want to come over and spend time over here. But at the end of the day, it's my job. I love it. I love being out on the water every day, and it's a big part of who I am. So I asked myself, am I willing to make that sacrifice and be away from my family from half the year every year? And every time the answer is yes. But if I am going to make that sacrifice and spend so much time away from my family every year, then I'm going to do the best I possibly can to make it worthwhile. And I also know that I am in a position where if I do everything the best I possibly can, and if I go out and perform the way I want to, then I am in a really lucky position to where I'm probably going to be looking good to win the event. So I asked myself, am I willing to make the sacrifice? Yes. And if so, I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. And still at this time, I believe that the best of my ability will allow me to win events and win titles and stuff. So when you look at it that way, quite possibly.
Quite possibly it would be a failure if you don't win the season. Is that?
I just have like expectations of what I know I can do and how I know I can perform. And if I don't like reach that at an event, like that's like the annoying part for me now. Like results will come and go. You get some, you lose some. It's events, it's competing, it's by nature. But what I really look into now is like, did I perform the way I wanted to? If not, I know how I can perform. And that's like the disappointing part. It's not like I got to get these results. I've got to get these results. I mean, I've been doing it for so long. Like I've been competing in pro for 10 years now. So it's not the results that get me. It's more like just knowing what I'm capable of. And if I don't reach that, then it's just like, well, it's annoying.
You could have, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's inside. Yeah.
So like, I kind of look at it from like that point of view now versus like, I got to win these events. I got to win these titles, or I won't get these contracts, or won't get this sponsor, or won't whatever it is.
Yeah.
I look at it from that other aspect now, and it's just like, it's annoying when you don't reach your full potential.
Yeah. When you know it's there, when you know it's like, I could do that. So that makes sense. I've never felt that way because I would never even come close. But
but it's the same thing with podcasting.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
You know, if you're not putting out good content, then, and you know you can, then you kind of just shitty with yourself.
You're right. That's a good point.
So
it's kind of having set expectations and living up to them. That makes sense.
That's it.
Let's talk. Well, first off, what's the purse for the PWT overall champion? Is that like a published thing?
It's not a published thing. I don't think they have an overall for it.
Okay, it's just each individual event.
Yeah.
Four stops. Do you know?
I haven't won the PWT in a long time, so I don't know.
What about for just an individual event win? You remember what the ballpark is?
It's like 7.5, 10.
Okay. I just have no idea. I'd
Yeah. I think it's like
give some context to the listeners there, but
I think it's like 7.5 grand or 10 grand. I think it depends on the event.
okay. So theoretically, if you win all four, you get 30 to 40 grand would be the top of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. What makes the Nick versus Cory rivalry so interesting? For those who don't know.
We're both very competitive people by nature, and I've always said it, you can't take away Nick's ability on a wakeboard and what he can do on a wakeboard, and you can't disrespect that because he is an unbelievable wakeboarder. But yeah, I think it's relatively known that we have a pretty strong rivalry and we don't necessarily like each other that much for multiple different reasons, I guess. But yeah, just like, I don't know, at the end of the day, like, I mean, he's definitely done some stuff to me on like a personal level that like I don't agree with. So I have like my own views on why I don't respect him as a person, but I respect his ability to wakeboard, and he is an unbelievably good competitor, and I have to respect that. But he's done some things to me on a personal level that I just like completely go against who I am.
I mean, I would be a
in my
bad
role.
journalist if I didn't ask. What's anything come to mind of?
Yeah, that was
feel
like,
comfortable talking about?
yeah, that was just a couple years ago. It was like through COVID years, I guess. And I guess I haven't really like told anyone on like a media standpoint, but it was through COVID, and one of my best friends passed away in Australia. His name was Alex Chumpy Pullen. He was a 3-time Olympian snowboarder.
Okay, I think I actually remember this.
Yeah. So he passed away on a free diving accident. He just had a shallow water blackout, passed out, sunk to the bottom, got him back to the beach, couldn't revive him. So he passed away, and I got the news one night, and I got the news on like a month, I think it was like a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, and got the call. Like, I remember I was up at like 12, 1 o'clock, and just like randomly couldn't sleep. And then all of a sudden, like my phone was just getting blasted from like calls from my dad, my brother, my personal trainer back home. His name's Nam Baldwin, who trains Chumpy as well. And I was just getting call after call after call. And I'm like, guys, it's, you know, the time difference. Like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, leave me alone. And I'm like, something's wrong. So anyway, got the call in the middle of the night. Was an absolute wreck. And Wakefest was that weekend. The weekend coming. Yeah. So I hadn't booked a flight and was like very like up in the air if I was like even going to go or whatever. And kind of just said, fuck it. Like, I'll just go. Like, it's not going to do me any harm going. Like, if anything, I'm just going to sit around and mope around all weekend. So, so yeah, I was like just an absolute train wreck. First time I've like lost someone important in my life, and was hitting hard. And I just remember like hadn't spoken to Nick like the whole weekend, and then like right before I'm like jumping off the dock to go to compete, he's like, "Hey, your friend died, like passed away, right?" And I was like, "Bro, like, you're not even like acknowledging it in like a respectful way for one, and two, like the worst possible timing. Like, I'm literally gonna go and do my shit. Like, there's intent behind that. You don't just like slip up and do that. Like,
yeah, and there's a line. There's a line. Like, that's well over the line.
Yeah, and like, I respect being competitive, whatever. Like, I'm a competitive person. You do anything.
I mean, your boots untied is a totally different situation.
But like, when it crosses over into like a personal level, like that's just below who I thought he ever would be. So like from that moment, I just like kind of just cut ties with him, and I was just like, all right, like if that's how you want to be, then like I can't respect someone that will like actively go out of their way to like mention something in the complete inappropriate and disrespectful time. I was like, that's just like, I don't fuck with that.
Yeah.
So ever since then, that's my reasoning why I don't get along with him. I still respect him as an athlete and as a competitor because I believe he's probably one of the best competitors the sport's seen, from Phil to Harley to anyone else in the industry. Like, he is unbelievably good at competing, and you have to respect that. But that's kind of where the line stops.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I mean, I don't think anyone would disagree with that at all. But that's because I feel like the Nick Cory, rivalry per se, because you're both Australian, you're both always near the top of the podium, has been for years.
Yeah,
so
but it's
like,
good though.
Oh, I think it's
Like, I know for a fact I've gotten more out of myself because of him. I would like to think the same way, that he's pushed himself to do things that he probably wouldn't think he would have done if he wouldn't have had to as well. So like, everyone always shies away from like rivalries and stuff in sport, but I think it's great. Like, we've both achieved things because of each other, I would like to believe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, just when you cross a personal level, that's kind of, like I said, it's like wakeboarding's what I do. It's not who I am. And that like crossed the line of like who I am. And
into who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of just where I just drew the line and said, all right, like I just kind of removed myself from the situation. And
so if you guys are on a podium next to each other, you're not talking?
Me and Nick don't really talk a whole lot at events. Yeah.
I just don't know the vibes. And I feel like a lot of people listening maybe don't know the vibes at like these boat contests, because they're pretty, the field of competitors is pretty tight. Like at PWT, what is it? 16 people?
Yeah.
Total pro men?
Yeah.
So like, that's a tight group of people, right? Like,
for sure. And I would like to consider myself buddies with everyone on tour.
Yeah.
But like, it all, like, at the end of the day, it also comes down to like, you can't be friends with everyone in this world.
You're not going to get along with everybody.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I think everyone now is like, oh, you gotta be friends with everyone. It's like, you can't be friends with every single person in this world.
And who wants to be friends with everyone? That's so many people.
Exactly.
That's so many people. Yeah.
So, I'm definitely like, I'm grateful for like the rivalry that we have had and probably will continue to have in our careers. But yeah, he just crossed the line on a personal level that I didn't agree with. And that's kind of like my reasoning for just not really associating myself with him and just doing my thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
fair enough.
And I'm sure like I've probably done things that he doesn't agree with as well. And sure, that's his opinions as well. And you have to respect that. But they're kind of my reasonings why.
So, are you going to win the PWT this year?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
I'd like to.
Yeah. I mean that's the plan.
It's always the goal. Yeah, it's always the goal.
Yeah.
So if it happens, great. Awesome. Another good year in the books and learned a lot more. But wakeboarding's getting very difficult now, and everyone's getting so unbelievably good that it is getting a lot harder to win events now. It's not like, I mean, I would have liked to think it was myself and Nick for like really being competitive for the win for a few years, but it's so not the case now.
It's opened up a little bit more now.
Oh, it's so difficult now.
I mean, I guess I got a question. So going into a PWT event, or I guess I say PWT because I can't think of events that, I mean, maybe there are, and you probably would know better than I, where all of the people who could win a pro wakeboard event are there. You know what I mean? So like there's some pro wakeboard events, but if you don't have the 8 to 12 best riders, it's not really a true like pro event, right? So like how many people would you say any given weekend could win a PWT event out of the 16?
I mean, we can kind of name them off, I guess. There's like, I mean, Sam had a really good last year. I think Sam had like kind of a breakthrough year. I think this is going to be Sam's like really competitive year this year. Tyler's been there and has been winning events for the last few years.
He won overall last year, didn't he?
Yeah.
So
Gunther.
Forgot Gunther's back.
Win an event whenever he wants. And then you look at guys like even like a lot of like the La Familia crew are doing really, like Luca, for example, like surprised me last year. He like put in some like really good performances last year. I know Tom's only getting better. Like, granted, I get to see Tom ride every day, but Tom is riding at a standard and a level that I haven't seen him ride. So he's like riding unbelievably well at the moment. So I think he could potentially have some podium finishes this year if he puts in some good performances.
Yeah.
So there's like anyone that makes the final is
It's open. It could
competing.
happen. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, the thing is, it's so tight now that like before you could, like, say, for example, if you sketched out on like one trick or something, like it'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. But like now it's like, if you miss a grab or you sketch out on one trick, that's the difference from first to fourth. That's not the difference from like, oh, I can just get away with it and go on. Like, the field is so competitive that it has to be so perfect every single time that that's really where the difficulty lies. And now that there's just so many more people that are fighting for that top spot, that is really where you see, like, it gets magnified now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's so much more competitive than it's ever been.
And I guess last year, Jamie Huser won a stop, didn't he? So like, I guess it could be any of the 16 is my point is
Exactly.
to talk about that.
Yeah. Like anyone that makes the final now is competing for the top spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. So I guess
It's hard, dude.
it's yeah, I can't
Getting
imagine.
hard.
That's good. That's good for the viewer though to watch. I think as a a third party perspective of just if anybody can win, you can kind of root for anybody, and it also is interesting to see like underdogs come and take stuff. So other than that, I would say if I was like the PWT person, that the rivalries should be a little bit more hyped up or published, I guess, of like in a public form, not necessarily like as deep as we went, but just even surface level type stuff would be cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's just more like it's a story that people get to follow, right? Like, because at the end of the day, like going out and competing isn't really relatable to a lot of people.
1080, I don't understand.
Yeah, like not a lot of people get to understand it and relate to that, but they relate to the work ethic. They relate to how they got there, the story behind it, the reasons why they're there competing.
The injuries,
So if anything, I think there just needs to be like more storylines involved in like the actual people that get to be in that position to compete at that event.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because the stories are there. We've talked about it many times, but yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of other sports do that really well. I think like surfing's like a prime example of that. Like the WSL have almost like, they're like a media company now, but like they're constantly pushing stories out and people actually like get to like feel like they're a part of it and like know the person behind the activity versus like just the activity and what they're doing out on the water.
Yeah. And I feel like it's the WSL or PWT or all these like different media entities or whatever to like, you see who the person is on social media. So like I can follow you and I see what you do. I see kind of a bit of who you are, but you almost have to tell more of the story when it comes to these competitive entities to like really connect with that person, to really latch on to like, oh, I'm going to tune in at this time to watch them because I watched this piece on who they are or whatever. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I think also like the events have for so long, they've been so focused solely on the riding and like solely focused on like us as wakeboarders, which has been unbelievable. And you've seen the sport progress so far to where it has been now. We're doing all these crazy competition runs and stuff, but it's been great to be like the sole focus of the event. But I feel like we need to almost veer off and away from that a little bit and focus on the event as a whole versus us as wakeboarders. And like what we want for a certain event isn't necessarily what's like going to be the best event.
Yeah.
So like I've always been a big advocate for like we need to like position ourselves in a situation that probably isn't the best for us wakeboarders, but is better for an event, like an overall event as a whole, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And I was just thinking of like when I watch X Games or whatever, I feel like I've heard way too many times the past decade, and the level of riding this weekend is at an insane level. it doesn't mean anything to anybody. Like it's
Yeah.
cool. You're telling me what I'm watching is insane. I already knew that. Like this guy's going 25 feet out of a super pipe. This guy's hitting a 90-foot ramp or jump and he's doing a triple cork, or like you guys are doing double flips behind the boat. Like people understand that is like insane, right?
Yeah.
Because they can't do it. Give them something else. Like the level of riding is going to be insane every year. Like, so,
And
yeah.
even if it's not, they don't know.
They don't know, dude. You could do a tantrum and they'd be like,
They'd be
"Let's
like,
go."
yeah. Does someone say that the level of riding is crazy? But like, yeah, not like they don't necessarily know. So it's more like, how do we connect these events into something that's like less focused on the riding aspect and something that's more relatable for the people that are actually in the industry and want to support and come and watch and
get
stuff.
your autograph and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a good little chat on that. I'm curious if you've ever invented any tricks.
Never invented any.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You positive?
Yeah.
100% positive.
100%.
Okay.
I was like, I kind of like just was coming through when like stuff was like being done, but there's like a lot of stuff that I'm like the youngest, but like never like fully like invented or like done like something like an NBD or anything like that.
Because I have written down here, I was talking to Garrett Cortez the other day, and I may have misheard him, but he says you have invented a trick.
Let me hear it.
The Slurpee 5.
Let's go. That actually just popped in my head. Yes.
I mean, can you confirm? I guess I don't know.
I can confirm that I have an NVD.
You can't let that one slip your mind, dude. You got to.
Dude.
That's got to go in the bio. Dude.
Oh my God. I don't know how that didn't come in. Wow. That is so funny. Yes, I have done some NVDs before. Let's go.
Well, I guess, and run through that Slurpee 5, and what did you call it? Because it wasn't called a Slurpee 5.
It was called a big slurp because we went to 7-Eleven afterwards and got like a Slurpee cup and got like the biggest one we could. It was called the big slurp. So, but it was, I can't remember how long. It would have been 10 years ago.
You said you were young.
It would have been 10 years ago. So I was around probably 15, 16, somewhere around then. Can't remember. And we went to Josh Palmer's place and Sean would have been there and had a Slurpee day where like we all had to go out and try Slurpees. And it was like the old dogs teaching the young bucks old school tricks. So like we all had to like go out and try Slurpees. It was like myself, my brother, Massey, Aaron Gunn. I think that was it. I think there was one more maybe, but I forget who. I'm sorry if
I don't think Garrett mentioned anybody else. That might have been it. I don't know. I don't remember.
Anyway, so the whole day and the video piece was having these young bucks trying to learn Slurpees. So go out, get a Slurpee, and then we were just like kind of messing around. I tried it to 5, landed it, and then I distinctly remember this. Massey tried a switch Slurpee edging into a double up and just got absolutely swallowed.
On the way up?
Didn't even leave the water. Did not leave the water. That was so fun, man. That was hilarious. We were getting smoked. I think Aaron caught the worst edge that day.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting trick, to say the least.
It's an interesting one. I'd be scared to try it again.
Slurpee or Slurpee 5 or both?
Either one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the listeners, you come in cuffed, and then I really am not even sure what you would like technically call the maneuver.
It's like
For the trick.
I mean,
I'll put a video in, obviously, but
yeah, in a weird way, it's like a cuffed blind Pete, but you have to like duck your head forward and in underneath in the way like you rotate around the line tension. It's like the furthest thing from like a blind Pete, but like
technically,
if you were to kind of like break it down, it's
Yeah.
like a blind Pete, but it's not.
with 2 hands on the rope. So like
Yeah.
the whole time, right? Because you're coming in cuffed, right?
Yeah, you obviously
just
let go of
let
like
go
the
and then
one hand straight off
grab
the
it, though.
wake, and then you like re-grab it and just hold on for dear life. And yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll put some videos in. It was
Hell yeah, I've done some NBD.
So you got it, dude.
Let's
You
go.
got it. Yeah, that one. You got to claim that one a little bit harder.
Yeah, I'm going to start holding that close to my chest.
Big slurp, dude.
That's sick. The big slurp.
I got a couple Patreon questions before we wrap this up.
Yeah.
Got one from Peter Bosma, and he's wondering what the difference between boat culture in the U.S. is versus boat culture in Australia, because you said you've lived the endless summer for over a decade now. So
Yeah. Well, I will start by saying the boat culture in America is a lot bigger. There's more people, there's more money. But I think like what's really cool is like we don't have like college wakeboard stuff in Australia. That's like not a thing. So like I think one aspect of it, like that's really cool that like they have like college teams and go and compete as like a team in college and stuff, which is really cool. And the whole like we don't like it's really hard in Australia to live on a body of water. Like if you own a boat in Australia, you tow it a minimum an hour away, put the boat in, you get a crew and you go like you make the commitment and you go out there for the day, you're on the boat for the day, you come home. So like getting on the water is a lot more difficult in Australia versus like a lot of people have like lake houses and stuff here. You get to walk out the backyard.
yeah, that's the
hop
norm
on the
here.
boat.
Yeah.
It's very normal. And that's why everyone's gravitated towards Orlando because it's very easy to wakeboard here. But we don't have that. So like the whole like lake house kind of vibe here in America is like really cool where like it's just so much easier to get out on the boat and actually get to enjoy being on the water versus like in Australia. It's just a lot more difficult to do that. Like for example, like if I want to get a 20, 30 minute set in Australia, it's a 5-6 hour ordeal for me. I live an hour and a half from where I keep the boat. I keep the boat at my brother's house. He's a street back from the boat ramp, so I got to drive to his house, hook the boat up, put it in, fill the weight, ride for 30 minutes, drain the weight, salt water. So I got to pull the boat out, detail the boat every time, drive an hour and a half home. So it's like, if I want 30 minutes of riding it,
it's the cable.
Like it's a 6 hour thing.
Yeah.
Where like I come here, if I want to ride, I'm on the water within 5 minutes. You know, so it's like there's so much more convenient.
It just makes more sense. Yeah. It's a little bit easier.
So it's just so much more accessible.
Yeah,
here in America.
That's a huge one. So that would it's a good answer to that question. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of people probably don't understand. I feel like on the west coast of America is probably a little bit more similar because people trailer their boats a lot more over there. But yeah, on the eastern half of the United States, it's a lot of people living on lakes, and that's the vibe. We got another one from Robbie Holohan.
Yeah. No. What does he want?
So there's a funny
I got a bad feeling. I kind of know
this isn't crazy.
Question's about.
This isn't crazy. What event and year did you rip off that first wake to wake toe 10? And were there any nerves going into it, or was she pretty bolts at that point? And then there's a second part, so I'll let you answer that first. But
it was my rookie year. So that would have been, I think this is my 9th year on tour. So 9 years ago, it was the last PWT stop. Can't remember what it was, but it was at like a water ski show site somewhere. And I had torn my meniscus in my knee like a couple weeks before it. So like it was still like super inflamed up and was in so much pain, and I was just downing Advils at like every chance I got. Like I'd go out, compete, in pain, smash Advil, about to go out again, smash Advil, compete, come back, smash Advil. I was just like doing anything I could. So I was in a lot of pain, but in a lot of ways, like the whole day was just very numb. Like I just didn't really feel anything. It was just, everything was just happening very quickly. And yeah, I guess I would have been doing 10s for like 2 years at that point. So yeah, I managed to smack one out, I guess.
were there any nerves? He was asking. Or were you pretty good? You feel pretty good about him at that point?
I mean, they weren't like solid, but I was kind of just like, I wasn't going to win the tour.
Yeah.
I just I mean, I had the intention to do it the whole time, but it was definitely a roll of the dice. It wasn't like an every time thing. So, yeah, I guess, I don't know. Came out good that day, I guess.
He's also wondering, I mean, what keeps riding still fresh for you? You've been doing it for so long. What keeps fresh?
Yeah, I guess kind of what I said before is it's my outlet to escape. And I get to completely shut off one part of my brain, but activate another part of my brain. And it's like, okay, this is what I'm working towards and this is what I want to do. So, wakeboarding it gives me an avenue to dedicate myself to something that is bigger than who I am. And it just gives me something to work towards. So I kind of just don't spiral and go crazy.
Yeah, stay sane.
Yeah.
And then he ends it with cheers, bruv. # Teddy B family cam for life. So I have no idea what that is.
Oh, I miss you, Robbie. I miss you, dude. Oh my God, that's epic.
Oh yeah.
Nah, Teddy B films the O'Brien. Well, I don't know if he still does or not, but he would film the O'Brien stuff at like every year at the catalog shoots. And he would have his like big camera, but then he would always he'd film like the majority of stuff on his handy cam, and that would like get used like a lot of the time in like all of the marketing and stuff. And we kind of thought it was pretty funny. Just young,
no red
dumb
cam,
kids, just 15-year-olds, just going crazy. Just super immature, finding things that are funny that probably aren't funny in the grand scheme of things, you know?
Yeah, you get a good hashtag out of it. Teddy B family cam for life, dude. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
For life.
Before we wrap it up, what gets you stoked on wakeboarding right now?
Well, right now I haven't really wakeboarded for a long time. It's been like 9 months. I only kind of got back into wakeboarding a couple of weeks ago. So, for me, I've had a long time off, forced time off, which was kind of shit. But I really am just enjoying being back on the water, and I've kind of felt like I've had a lot of moments over like my 10 years of competing and stuff that like I'll go a couple years, something will happen that'll like kind of drag me and my attention away from wakeboarding for a little bit, and then I get brought back in and like I re-spark the energy and the love for the sport at a needed time. And I feel like this is like kind of the same thing, like was forced away from the sport for a little bit, from something that I didn't know it was bad to something leading into like something way worse than I ever thought it was going to be. But it like took my attention away. And like I'm back and like I'm really enjoying being out on the boat and being on the water. And like the last few years I've really kind of appreciated and kind of just has been more well known that I can't wakeboard by myself. It's the people that I have around me, and I don't have a big friend group, but the friends that I have around me I will do anything for and love to be a part of and love to be around, and just having great people around me doing great things and working towards some pretty cool stuff is just exciting and great to be around. So for me, it's like just a whole refound love for the sport again that I haven't felt in a fair while. So it's just super exciting and just nice to like be out on the water again.
Just get back out on the water with a good crew. Can't beat it.
You can't.
You can't. You
can't.
cannot beat it.
And it's like, it is cliche to say, I know that's why we all get into the industry because of that, but it's like come full circle around again for me. And I'm loving being out on the water at the moment. It's so fun.
So what's the crew? What's the average crew you're riding with? You said it's pretty tight, but who are you riding with?
Obviously Tom, which
Triple
is
flip Thomas.
Triple flip king, forehead tattoo guy. And then my neighbors are really cool, like Blake Jones and L Christensen and Cody Honeycutt and stuff live next door. I ride with Zara a fair bit. I only kind of just got back pretty fresh and have been on the road, but like I'll go and ride with like Rusty and stuff out in Claremont. So, yeah, just I try and surround myself with good people that have good ethics and are positive people to be around.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Love that. Before we wrap it up, anybody you want to thank or anything else you want to touch on before we finish this up?
I want to thank everyone that's kind of supported me through my whole career. I know it's a lot of different people over a lot of long periods of time. My family, first and foremost. I wouldn't be like here without them. They've been unbelievably supportive through my whole career. So yeah, love them as much as I can, and just all my support crew that have helped me to get here to have cool chats and get to talk about something that we love every day. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we are pretty lucky to do it. So, anyone that's helped me along the road.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love to hear that. Well, thanks a ton for coming on. It's been a blast.
Thank you, dude. We've been trying to, I know you hit me up last year, right before I left to go back home, and I felt bad. I was like, you hit me up, and then it was Double or Nothing, and then I left the morning after Double or Nothing, got on that plane pretty hungover. So,
well, the only person harder to get on than you is No Fleagle. So that's
okay. That's kind of fair. Noah lives away, and I live away for a long period of time. So
he's all over the place.
Yeah, but I'm glad that we're able to make this work.
Yeah, this was sick. It was a great chat.
We've been trying to line this up for a while, so appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely,
dude.
man. This was a blast.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you guys are listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure to rate 5 stars. And if you are interested in supporting the podcast, join the Patreon. Thanks a ton for joining in on this one. We'll see you guys next time.
You.